Welcome, bienvenidos to Pica Poco Kitchen. Today we're making mole de olla. Vámonos! Just like every other person, January is a month when I decide to set unattainable health habits and health goals in my life that I will forget about as soon as February hits in. And one of them is to consume more vegetables. It is difficult for me, at least in my natural regular life, to introduce vegetables without a lot of planning ahead. I have to think of a dish that has them and then go shopping, and to be honest, it's not that easy. At least it doesn't come naturally for me. But mole de olla is a great dish, a great excuse to eat a lot of veggies in one sitting. Mole de olla, just like its name says, it is a mole, but it comes in a liquid form. Not to be confused with desmole, which is very similar, but it has a few different ingredients. It is basically a different variation of the same dish. Mole de olla uses beef meat, uses a different base of many peppers, and it has a lot of veggies. And that's what we're here for today. Mole de olla was born during the colony as a child of this mixture of cultures based on your traditional Spanish stews using the Mesoamerican ingredients. And just like many other dishes, it takes advantage of whatever is growing around you. And you can see how all of these vegetables that grow together, grow next to each other, complement very well. You have the corn, the beans, the squashes, all growing in proximity and becoming a delicious dish like mole de olla. It is packed with flavor, packed with veggies. It is wonderful for cold weather and even when it's hot out if you have the craving. But at least it's gonna ensure that for a couple of weeks, maybe 1 week, you're gonna be consuming a lot of veggies. And if you like it, you probably will make it again. If you are a fan of birria, this dish has a lot of the similar profiles, but it just feels healthier because it has more veggies. So let's get to it. Let's start with the meat. I have here beef shank. Beef shank is basically the cow's leg. I think that this meat is fantastic for mole de olla because the meat is gonna become super tender once I cook it in the pressure cooker, that it's almost gonna melt in your mouth. You can use a mix of beef shank with other of your classic stew meats like chuck roast or bottom round. It's gonna be up to you. I am gonna stick with my beef shank. I will be cooking my entire package, which is almost 4 pounds. Another thing that I really like about using beef shank is that it comes with the bone, and the bone comes with bone marrow. This is not just gonna give the broth a delicious flavor, it's also gonna be a delicious snack for later. And I'll show you how to get yourself a snack of these delicious bone marrow. But let's move on. Now let's talk about the base of the soup, where all the flavor is gonna come from. And here are the main differences between a desmole and mole de olla. Because just like Mary Kate and Ashley, they look similar, but they have a different content, different personalities, and that's exactly what happens here. We love them both though. So for mole de olla, our peppers are going to be 2 Guajillo peppers, 1 Ancho, and 1 Pasilla. Like always, I'm going to clean, devein, deseed them, and rehydrate them with boiling water. I'm gonna let them sit for 10 minutes while I roast 2 tomatoes and half an onion. Once everything is ready, we're gonna pack that into our food processor, add some of that pepper's brew, and bring it to a blend. Don't forget also to add some garlic. And that's gonna be the base for our soup. And now what we're here for, all of the pack of veggies. I will be using 2 potatoes, 2 carrots. For both of them, I'm going to peel them and dice them small. The size of your veggies is going to be up to you. A lot of people like to leave their veggies pretty big, but I find that uncomfortable when eating. I like to keep my veggies small enough that many of them will fit in my spoon, or at least a couple of them will fit in my spoon. I will also be using a couple of zucchinis that I will be cutting in rounds and cutting those rounds in half. I won't make the zucchinis too small because they can just melt and lose all of their shape. I will be also using some French green beans, which I will be only cutting probably in 3 pieces depending how long they are, and just getting rid of the tips. I will be using yellow corn. If you're using a tougher kind of corn or white corn, you can cook your corn with the meat in the pressure cooker from the start. Since I'm using yellow corn, I will be cooking it alongside the rest of the veggies because it won't take too long. And I have here just 3 corns that are cut in halves. I actually got mine that's already cut, so I'm using 6 pieces. I am leaving out 2 important veggies that are traditional for this soup. One is the choconostle. The choconostle is one type of prickly pear. I am leaving it out because there's no way for me to get it in here. This type of prickly pear has a reddish greenish tone to it, almost like an ombre. It is yellow on the inside and it has red seeds. It is a sour prickly pear. That's why it's commonly used in savory dishes, opposite to other types of prickly pear, which are more fruity and sweeter, and they can be consumed on their own, like green and red. So check out your international market and maybe you can find choconostle there. And the other veggie that I'm leaving out is a type of squash called chayote. I'm leaving it out because it's one of the few things that I just won't eat. I just don't prefer it. There's nothing wrong about it, but it has no much flavor. The texture is kind of weird. It makes me confused because it looks like potato with a greenish hue, but it doesn't taste like potato and it doesn't have the same. I don't know. I just don't like chayote and I avoid it. But hey, here's a picture. If you are intrigued and you want to try it, go ahead and get that one because it's not for me. But that's it when it comes to the veggies and the meat. There's one extra wonderful thing about mole de olla, but I will tell you about that once we're almost ready. Let's get cooking. After 30 minutes, I transfer my meat into my Dutch oven. I remove the bones and use scissors to remove the connective tissue because it can be tough to chew. I'm gonna add my soup base. At this point, you want to give it a try and add beef bouillon to your liking. I'm gonna add all of my veggies because we're gonna put the lid back on. I'm gonna take it to the stove and cook it for another 20 minutes. And don't worry, time's gonna go fast because there are 2 things that we have to take care of. First, a little snack. While my bones are still hot, I'm gonna remove the bone marrow using a sharp knife. The best moment to eat them is when they are still hot because you're gonna get the best flavor and texture. If yours got cold, If they got cold, you can pop your bones in the oven for a few minutes and you're gonna be fine. Recently made tortillas, spread some of that bone marrow into it, sprinkle a little bit of salt, and squeeze some lime. And you've made yourself a humble yet luxurious snack. And I told you there was something special about this soup, chochoyotes. Chochoyotes are little masa dumplings that you can put in your soup. We're gonna start with a simple masa, 1 cup of masa harina and 1 1/4 cups of warm water. Mix that well. We're gonna add some salt, and here's where you can find variations. For this ones, I'm gonna use 1 teaspoon of dried epazote. If you have fresh epazote, that would be very nice too. Some people like to add lard into the dough, and you can do that, but I like to keep mine plain. You'll find different variations with herbs and other flavorings that you can add to them. So have fun. To make them, grab a little portion of your masa and roll it in your hands to make a circle of around 1 inch or a bit smaller. Use your index finger and press right in the center. And you're gonna give them this peculiar shape that some people call little belly buttons. Or in Spanish, ombliguitos. I wonder what is easier for you to say, chochoyote or ombliguito. Now that they're ready, we're gonna add them straight into our soup right at the end of coction, and they're gonna be ready in around 10 minutes. Chochoyotes can also be consumed on their own, bathed with a sauce, either a tomatillo sauce or even some frijoles de olla. In that case, before you add the sauce to them, you can give them a little fry in a pan with a little bit of oil. Now for the final moments, let's put the lid back on, take it back to the stove, and here you have it. Everything is cooked and smelling delicious. Get yourself a bowl and be ready to enjoy. And here we have it. It is really hot, but we're gonna give it a try anyway. Of course, with lime. And I would normally have a plate next to my mole so I can set aside, for example, the corn to eat it last, because I don't know if you do that, but I like to eat the thing that I like the most last. But let's give it a try. Some of the veggies, some of the meat. I'm gonna burn my mouth. You can bite into them, pop them in your mouth. They're wonderful. They give you a nice extra texture and flavor. Of course, you can also have tortillas next to this, but the chewiness they get when you cook them in the broth is delicious. We consume more veggies, at least for today, with a classic. I hope you enjoyed this recipe just like this video, and if you did, please share it with your friends. Like, subscribe, and be notified. And for more, follow me on the socials. Adios, amigues.